It's time for another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas, the podcast covering the intersection of business, culture, entrepreneurship, and life in general here in the Ozarks. Whether you are considering a move to this area or trying to learn more about the place you call home, we've got something special for you. Here's our host, Randy Wilburn.
Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. I'm Randy Wilburn, and I'm excited to be here today with you. I have got a great guest for the podcast. I've brought a friend of mine who I actually used to work with at a firm that I actually came here to work for when I moved to Fayetteville about 5 years ago. And man, I can't believe how time has flown. But he not only was he a colleague and a coworker, but he became a friend and somebody that actually schooled me on all of the ways and intricacies of Northwest Arkansas. So he's been kind of my go-to Yoda, if you will, when it comes to all great things about NWA. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Chad Coldiron. Chad is the Director of Executive Search at Zweig Group, which is actually a management consulting firm based right by Rick's Bakery on North College across from the VA hospital. And Chad is a lifelong Fayetteville resident, and here he is. Chad, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Randy. Thanks for having me in today. Excited to join a friend, talk about the community that I grew up in and what makes me excited about it. Just looking out this window right now, I can see some things that honestly just give me goosebumps.
Old Main is over my back.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So, it's a different conversation than I get to have with most people every day, but it's probably the one that I'm most comfortable with at this point in my life.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So tell us a little bit about and as we like to ask all of our guests, everybody has a superhero origin story. So why don't you give us the quick Cliff Note version of who Chad Coldiron is? And I mean, it's such a cool name. I mean, that last name Coldiron, that's like the name of a star, of a movie star, featuring Chad Coldiron in his third epic movie. So anyway, but I'm digress.
I wish.
Go ahead.
Yes, anyone out there, let me know if you need my rights to my last name. Coldiron it's a great family name. We come from a long line of blacksmiths as we traced it back. But as I always like to say, I'm not sure that we were the best blacksmith with a last name like Coldiron.
Right.
Should probably be a little closer to hot.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah, my beginnings, I've been here since the late 80s, which really was a transformative time in Northwest Arkansas in general. I'm what you and a lot of people refer around to here as a Walmart brat.
Okay.
So along the way, my dad's career led him to work directly with Walmart on the supply side.
Okay.
And one of the interesting things about Walmart and what one of the business practices that they were able to establish in our area during their major growth periods was the demand for the presence of their suppliers in Northwest Arkansas.
Right.
So that brought me. It brought a ton of great families throughout really the world to become the melting pot that Northwest Arkansas is today.
Right.
It's very interesting. There's a very hard line usually of, are you from around here or did Walmart bring you here? Everyone's welcome and accepted. But as far as I'm concerned, I've kind of grown up right on the middle of that line, and it's put me in a really good spot to develop relationships throughout the community.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's funny you say that. And again, I never want to beat a drum about Walmart or J.B. Hunt or Tyson, but it's like you can't ignore them. They're here. There's a reason why they're here, and there's a reason why they're part of the reason why this area is so prolific in terms of growth, in terms of opportunity, in terms of nuance about, why do we have one of the greatest art collections in the whole country right here nestled in the Ozarks in Crystal Bridges. Sure. And we had a great episode talking with Beth Bobbitt, who is the PR person from there. And so, again, these are all of the stories that I think people need to hear and understand about what makes this place so special. So, podcast listeners, if you hear me ad nauseum talk about Walmart and Sam Walton and all that, it's because he's had a major impact in this area. And again, I don't care where your politics lie. I don't care what you think about Walmart or what you don't think about Walmart. The bottom line is they set stakes here in Northwest Arkansas and have made a difference. And like you said, with the whole supply side chain of businesses that served Walmart, that has only increased. And I think now the number is something like 18 or 1,900 companies have a domicile and a location here in Northwest Arkansas, which is pretty ridiculous when you think about it. Because I don't know that there's any other organization. I don't think Target in Minnesota forced all their suppliers to have a location in Minnesota. I mean, I may need to check on that, but I doubt that was the case. But Sam Walton had the presence of mind and the foresight to say, you know what? If people are going to do business with us, we want them to be a part of us and what we're doing. So,
very true. I think a couple of others out there have tried to copy that same model, but Walmart has definitely been the one to hold true and fast as the authority there, as far as working with the supply side and really just being one of the greatest retail beings to ever come around.
Right.
It's like you said, it's supported this area in a way that nothing else really has. It's not only just provided the jobs and everything, but it's really just brought this atmosphere to Northwest Arkansas. You can see that we're just a little bit ahead of a lot of other areas that you might compare to us, whether population-wise or having a major university or just being one of the epicenters of their state. It's just neat. We're getting things like a brand new Topgolf.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely a big deal for a lot of the Walmart crowd. That's a huge deal to be able to fly somebody in and say, this is a part of your trip. You can go stay and do this. It's a beautiful region that's getting more exposure over the last short while. Whether that's through the university in general, or I think we had another news article, Newsweek, ranked us the number 4 best place to live in America again this year.
Yeah, U.S. News and World Report. I mean, it almost gets like, it's like you just hear it every year. It's like, what are we 4? Are we 5? Are we 3? One year we were number 1, I think. So, I mean, every year we're like in that top 5, top 10. And when I say we, again, I think on one of the other episodes, I mean, this was a ranking for Fayetteville, but when we think of it, it's the whole Northwest Arkansas area. And like I said, I kind of lump Bentonville, even though there's some distinct differences between each city. I mean, Bentonville has its own DNA. Rogers has its own DNA. Springdale has its own DNA, according to Philip Taldo. And Fayetteville has its own DNA. So, and all the surrounding areas, Tawnytown, West Siloam, and then out in Eureka Springs and all those areas. I mean, that's the thing about it. It's like a melting pot, this whole Northwest Arkansas area. So, I mean, I think it's kind of cool. But tell me just a little bit about, your experience growing up here and fundamentally the changes that you've witnessed over time. I mean, you had a chance to go away after school, after you graduated from college and came back. But just talk about your experience growing up here in Northwest Arkansas and the changes you've witnessed since then.
Wow. It's incredible. So I know when we first moved here that, we didn't even have a Northwest Arkansas mall at the time.
Right. So
my mom was from Detroit, Cincinnati, Dallas, used to having certain amenities, was not a very big fan of what she saw. So, my first images of Fayetteville are this small town connected to a small airport, followed by a long drive up to the Walmart headquarters.
Right.
That's really what I had in my mind with the university, really supporting a lot of the Fayetteville-specific community. So what unfolded over the next few decades, really, at this point, are the support that it seems the community is able to, or the surrounding areas are able to give each community has grown so much. So just for instance, the public library that we're sitting in right now, this was not a resource when I was a child. We had all the way through university just access to those. And then, out of nowhere pops up one of the nicest libraries in the country, right in my backyard. So stories like that, tended to come around often, which is, hey, we were getting some sort of new facility, and guess what? It's one of the nicest ones in the country, and it's been funded and supported by one of these major groups that are right here in our community. So that was a lot of my upbringing was, okay, I'm now ready for the next step that our community is about to take. What are we doing next? How are we supporting this part of the community, whether it be a greater homeless outreach program or expanding the university's attendance as far as people go there, or redoing some of the new Walmart campus to really keep up with some of the trends that are going on in workplace environment.
Yeah.
Those are all huge things that I've just become normal to realize that are happening around here. So some support just like that and growth has probably been the biggest thing that I've noticed. But one thing that I've also noticed is that we've never really lost that small town community feel.
Yeah.
You're still getting the hellos and nods and, hope you have a good day as you're leaving the bank, all of those, short-term politenesses that you usually find in a little bit slower, smaller community.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting as far as the education expansion has gone. Almost every high school and area surrounding us has, doubled or tripled their population as far as kids go, and that offers a ton of opportunities too. So I also participate in a couple of different programs. One of them is called the Spark Foundation.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
So last Friday or Saturday, we had the cow patty race.
But that was the event at Gully Park?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't believe it. Every year that comes around so fast. So talk about that real quick.
It rains a lot every year like it did this year. But no, that is one of the cow patty race was a race that was started in the 80s, ran through the 90s, and then it took a break for a few years. I had a few close friends, a couple outside of myself that are really the key figures, who developed this race back because they wanted to give back to their community, and running was always extremely accessible and promoted around here as through the trails and everything.
Yeah.
So it was an easy way for us to figure out how do we get back to the public education and those types of opportunities now that we're older and have the ability to. So creating the Cow Patty Run version 2 was a huge goal. And I think that first year we started out with 80 or so kids running in the event, and we'll have as many as 600 at this point.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
now you're raising money, right?
Yeah, we've raised anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 depending on the year and participation for the Fayetteville Public Education Foundation. So that has been a huge gift for us. We've been a part of a lot of different initiatives on how that money is distributed to each school, what programs they get into, and a lot of the programs revolve around health and fitness.
Okay.
So that spurred off into another big run, which actually finishes up right outside on Center Street here. That is the Hero Half Marathon. It's a half marathon that is focused around firefighters.
Okay.
So not only are we able to give to those same local education organizations, but we also can reach out to a couple national firefighters foundations as well as the 9/11 Foundation and make some contributions there.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah. And
when is the Hero Half Marathon?
So that will normally lie sometime in mid-October.
Okay. All right.
And honestly, we have firefighters that come in from all over the country to participate in this at this point. And these guys run this thing in their full gear, which is over 100 pounds of air tank, jacket, helmet, masks, everything.
Yeah.
And it's very, very impressive.
That's why it's a half marathon.
Yeah, right. It's very impressive to see these guys cross the finish lines, and a lot of times they'll have teammates and supports that have been there, throughout the whole race, encouraging them on. And honestly, that's one of the better moments that you'll find at a race atmosphere is when you've got one of those guys coming up the last long hill, really pushing himself, and he knows that he's not only doing it for himself, but he's probably doing it for his whole fire squad back home.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's very cool. So what do you think about, what was your experience like being a product of of the school system here, specifically in Fayetteville. But then I also know that you played sports, and you got a little bit of experience on the baseball diamond. And but what was your experience overall? If I'm maybe relocating here to Northwest Arkansas, and I've got some school age children, and I may be getting them involved in some organized sports. What is your take on organized sports here in Northwest Arkansas?
Sure. Well, Fayetteville High School alone, or just the Fayetteville education system, sports-wise, always very competitive. They do a great job of bringing in pretty good leaders who've got some good experience, and I would like to say the tenure of an average coach at Fayetteville is very, very long. So they're touching a lot of generations of kids, and they can change themselves over those years and really become better leaders. And I've seen that out of quite a few different situations in Fayetteville, but in general, I'd use the words very fortunate, spoiled, if not, as far as facilities go, access to things like booster clubs. Those were all very, very prevalent as to compared to some of the other places I knew from around Northwest Arkansas that just didn't have as much for each team or for even each individual kid. Tons of different opportunities there, but on the education side of it, I think this is probably one of the better public educations you can get in America.
Yeah.
As far as kind of comparing what we have to some other similar size and even some of the bigger communities. It's a very, very education friendly area around here, and I think a lot of that actually comes through the university and how many people it employs. So it's just a very important, very invested in thing from a young age around here. And I think it really shows. We've got plenty of kids that come out right out of the public education system that step right into some of the most respected jobs in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you have a lot of options here. I mean, you obviously got the U of A, which is kind of the beacon of all education in this area. You've got NWAC. You've got all these, from K through 12. You've got a lot of private schools. You've got a lot of charter schools, like Haas Hall and others, and then of course you've got all of these, larger high schools, Springdale, Harbor, Bentonville, and I can't list them all, and of course Fayetteville, as you said. So there's just a lot going on as far as that's concerned, and there seems to be, and again, from somebody, I've only been here 5 years, but my feeling is that there is some camaraderie between the different schools. Like I remember the story about how Fayetteville got its name, Bulldogs, and how Springdale, how Fayetteville and Springdale both had the same school mascot name, and they played a football game to settle it that who would get that name. So, and you want to tell me the quick story of that?
Nobody came out on top that game, and we both are now the Bulldogs.
That's hilarious because the game ended up tie, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So how long ago was that?
Oh, I don't know the date on that.
Okay, all right. I thought that was a hilarious story when they told me, because it was like, yeah, Springdale, they're the Bulldogs, Fayetteville's the Bulldogs, so we're going to play for it. They play for it, they tie, and then nobody changes their name. Yep. So that's funny.
I think it's the most popular mascot in all of high school sports.
Probably.
That makes sense as
well. Probably. Yeah, absolutely.
No, but the rivalries amongst Springdale, Bentonville, Rogers, Fayetteville, growing up were, that's what Fridays were all about when I was younger. Now that I've gotten older, I try to appreciate the area as a whole. Everything has something to offer. Bentonville and the industry and knowledge that comes out of that area from a business standpoint is amazing, and as well as a arts and cultural standpoint.
Right.
Rogers is near and dear to my heart just because Beaver Lake. It's one of the best kept secrets about the area, and it's a very bass friendly, fisherman friendly, and water sport friendly lake that expands quite a bit of Northwest Arkansas as well. So, I enjoy Rogers for that, and then Springdale has kind of been one of the industrial areas of our area that has supported a ton of what's happened over the years in Fayetteville and Bentonville and Rogers, and at this point they are actually growing quite a bit,
Right.
improving whether it's the new downtown area, which has been a big focus of the Tyson family, as far as making sure that there's things happening, making that area desirable for not only bigger industrial businesses, but some of the smaller businesses as well,
Right.
that want to come in and just feel like they've got a good home on Main Street America in Springdale.
Yeah, it's almost become, Emma has become almost an incubator of sorts. You've got, there's the cider brewing company there. I think it's Black Apple.
Yeah.
And there's just a number of things going on there. And I actually was driving over there the other day, and I saw the Tyson facility, and I was like, oh my gosh! It's absolutely gorgeous.
Sure.
And it's one of many, because Tyson has locations all over the place. But that facility, you don't really notice it till you're right up on it. You see the little chicken sign, and you go and you look in the back, and you're like, wow, this is really it's beautiful. It's absolutely really
in that building, I believe that house all of their IT worker,
Right.
IT operations
Right.
at this point.
Right.
But I know that area, they are primed to take over a couple other things and keep improving. So
Yeah.
and another big thing that just went in that they were a big part of supporting is the new children's hospital.
Yes.
So them along with the JB Hunt family as well.
Right.
Rumors are that could be one of the best facilities in the country whenever things are all said and done here in a few years. So.
And that's saying a lot, because there's a lot of good children's hospitals around the country. And speaking of which I might just point out to local residents, is that, obviously if you ever have an emergency with your child, you can actually take them to the children's hospital emergency room there in Springdale, and that is an option to you as well. You don't necessarily have to take your child to Washington Regional. I actually know some people that work at that children's hospital, and they say, sometimes we're just sitting here playing cards. They're not really, but they're dealing with very sick children, but then they also have an emergency unit there. And so certainly want to encourage you, if unfortunately something happens and you have the need for that type of facility, you should know that is available and open to you. And it's right there just on the other side of the highway from Springdale and off of Don Tyson. And so there are a lot of options for you as far as that's concerned. But every day I turn around, and that wasn't even there 5 years ago when I moved here.
No.
So every day I turn around, there's something like that new popping up. And that's what I really like about Northwest Arkansas, is because if you blink, all of a sudden there's a new building, there's a new business, there's a new opportunity of something that's happening in your area, which is kind of cool. I know you have a lot of things that you like to do. You're a man of many talents and many interests. And there's one thing that I've always wanted to talk with you about, and I figured this would be the best forum to share it. But I know you like a little antiquing, and that's kind of a cool thing for you. And share with the audience some of the ins and outs of antiquing here in Northwest Arkansas and what it's like. And maybe you don't have to give away all your secrets, but I know that you like antiquing. You love succulent plants. Again, you're a multivaried individual. But talk a little bit about the whole antiquing marketplace here in Northwest Arkansas.
Sure. And my interests, like any good Southern boy, a lot of it comes from his parents. I know that my mom loved the old and rusty. She did not want to fix anything. She just wanted it the way it was.
Yeah.
So I think I've learned to, take that aspect and let it bleed into other parts of my life, which is, hey, let's look at this glass half full. And that's the way I look with a lot of antiques, is that this is something that overall does interest me. There was a lot of work that went into some of these products that were made way back when. Mm-hmm. A lot more work and handmade work than a lot of things get now.
Yeah.
So to be able to save that, create a story from it, have my own origin story. I really do. I like that. It gets me out of bed early on Saturday and Sundays, when I'm off work and I want to go hit some garage sales and
right.
and do a little dickering.
Yeah.
It's a part of the community around here is to see some secondhand goods, and I think that's just one thing I always fell in love with. So You'll rarely see me buy something new.
Right.
I'll put it that way.
New isn't always better, as I was taught as a young person. So, no, exactly. That I like that, and you're absolutely right about quality, which unfortunately doesn't exist the way that it did in the past. And so, there's a lot of there are a lot of options out there for you to find some really neat things. So, and there are all kinds of swap meets and things of that nature around here. So.
Sure, whether it's a flea market, swap meet, or just a good vintage store, it seems to the area seems to support that type of operation. I know I always have, but we've definitely gained some more in recent years.
Give me 2 vintage stores for our audience listeners.
Let's see. I really like 410 Vintage.
Okay.
They're right there on North College in Lafayette.
Okay.
And then.
Yeah, I know 410 Vintage, and I know there's a couple of other places down.
I'll put it this way:
south of town.
If you drive out to Prairie Grove,
okay,
there are 4 or 5 vintage shops on Main Street there.
Okay.
Those are my favorite days, is whenever I get the extra 45 minutes to get ready in the morning and head out there and then head back.
Okay. So you pretty much can go out there and you probably will leave satisfied finding something.
Every time.
Okay. All right, cool. There you go. Well, there you have it, folks. So definitely, if you can, check out 410 Vintage right there on North College in Lafayette, and head on down to Prairie Grove, and there are 4 or 5 vintage shops down there. And we'll put some links in the show notes for some of these places. So talk a little bit about, and I know you just recently bought a house on the east side of town, and you have decided that you're going to make roots here. I mean, obviously your family's here, so there's really no reason to leave. Why have you? I mean, you had a chance to go to Dallas. You've seen some other big cities. You've experienced some things. What firmly in your mind as an adult made you say, you know what, I'm going to stay here in Northwest Arkansas?
Couple of things. I think the first thing that is one of the underlying themes is that I've always felt very, very supported by this community.
Okay.
It seems and feels like home to me.
Yeah.
When compared to other places. I don't expect everyone to have that feeling, but the way I was, raised and the opportunities that were put in front of me, I always want to give back directly to this community. Because that was always a goal of mine, is to be able to go out and give back in some way. And so it's really important to me that it's done here, because so much was given to me through this community. And one of the other reasons is that this is one of the premier growing areas for opportunities in America right now.
Yeah.
Housing is affordable. Still kind of.
So, coming from a man that just bought a house, so he knows. That's cool.
Traffic isn't bad.
Right.
Crime is very low.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of community markets, and it's not exactly Walmart country like you'd think, where there's a Walmart on every corner.
Right. I think that's what some people think about when they
do.
They do. I mean, we can't get a Costco here, but that's a whole nother conversation. And I'm still holding out hope for Trader Joe's, but I think people have this idea that there is literally a Walmart on every corner, and there really isn't. And again, I have a newfound respect. I have a much larger respect for Walmart after walking through those hallowed halls at the museum up there in Bentonville on the square, and then just learning what I've learned about Sam Walton. And again, I think it's part of the fabric of what this area is. Mm-hmm. So, you can't beat that. And I know you like good food too. So to talk to the audience a little bit about places that you like to go hang out and eat. I know you really like good food, and so
do.
Yeah, and you know a lot of spots, because you're always telling me about places to go, and you should check out this place or visit that place. I know a couple of your friends have food trucks in the area. So, what if there were 2 or 3 spots that you either regularly frequent or that you would recommend to someone listening in? What would you say?
Sure. A Fayetteville classic is Hugo's.
Yeah.
I think. If you've got a good 2-person table and you want to grab a good lunch or dinner and actually have a little bit different atmosphere than you might find anywhere else in Arkansas, that's a really good place to start, and that's right down there on the Fayetteville Square.
Sure.
Secondly, you mentioned my buddy. He owns a Cajun food truck. It's called NWA.
Okay.
I eat there a lot.
You keep him in business.
I do. Yes, we're trying. No, but him along with a lot of other entrepreneurs in the food truck scene have found some decent success here.
Yeah.
So that's exciting as well. But as far as restaurants go, I've got a couple of favorite pizza places around here too.
Okay.
One of them is called Mojo's Pizza.
Yep.
I think they've got some of the best crust in town. And then, one that I wasn't sure that I was going to be totally on board with, which is Woodstone. But I really love Woodstone.
I love Woodstone too. Yeah. And they have 2 locations. They have one down south of town and they have one uptown. So here in Fayetteville, which is kind of cool. So yeah, those are some good restaurants.
Yeah. I've eaten at a couple other places that are up north though. I recently had a meal at the Preacher's Son.
Oh, somebody else was telling me about that place, the Preacher's Son.
It's a beautiful older church that was reconverted into a restaurant, and I believe they've got a bar and lounge maybe in the basement.
Okay.
But one of the neat things about Preacher's Son is that all of the glasswork was done by an artist named George Dombach.
Okay.
So George, pretty well known for his stained glass work, some hidden figures within those stains. So if you're sitting there staring and you feel like, am I looking at a tree or am I looking at something else? You actually might be looking at something else.
Yeah.
So encourage everyone to check that out. He's also got some work, I think, at Crystal Bridges, as far as a part of the actual building and not on display.
Right.
So yeah, that's a neat little piece up there that I would mention going to. And then there's this other place that. If you like the new craze of the open wood fire type atmosphere where you can see the cooking going on, there's a place called Oven and Tap that I'd recommend as well.
Okay.
They do a lot of breads, pizzas, pastas, kind of Italian style, but then also dip in on quite a few seafood dishes as well.
Okay. And then you're in that scene where you're a millennial. You like to go hang out after work sometimes, but where would you go grab a drink? Here or somewhere in Northwest Arkansas?
My dad's got a great bar in his basement. No, I don't like to say that I'm old school because I honestly haven't been hanging out there for too many years. But I like to go to a place called Maxine's Tap Room.
I knew you were going to say that.
So Maxine's is there. There's another place that if I want to catch a good game and yell whatever I want to yell, I'll go down to a place called Buster's.
Okay.
It's right down there on Dixon Street and been there for a very, very long time.
Okay.
Asked for a guy named Dave.
So we're getting specific, podcasters. Those of you that are listening to this, you get the ends of where you need to go and who you need to ask for. I kind of like that because that brings some added value to listening to these podcasts because you just never know what you might learn. So there's always a hookup out there somewhere. So
there is. That's actually one thing, being a townie and grown up around here, that I've always felt like I'm 1 or 2 degrees away from solving any problem around here.
Right. Which I love. That's awesome. So, okay. Well, there you have it, folks. I mean, Chad has brought in a number of different pieces of information I think are really helpful and valuable as you either are listening to this and contemplating making a move to the Northwest Arkansas area. But, as we close out, Chad, would you have any final words to share for our listening audience?
I think one important takeaway is to realize that the Northwest Arkansas opportunity is probably greatest now than it has been in a very long time. We are just now getting to the place to where someone who might be listening to a podcast like this could say, okay, Fayetteville, Bentonville, Rogers, Springdale, that's actually a place I could move to and make it.
Yeah.
As before, I think we were just a place that had been making a list for a long time. But we didn't really have any real reason to bring people here other than there were some good paying jobs and housing was low.
Right.
Now we're starting to see those resources come in, and it's wonderful to see. I know I'm excited for the next generations who have access to all of this, but still get to feel that same community vibe that I got growing up, and,
Right.
and it's been so important to me.
Yeah, no, and it's going to be interesting to see. Like I said, I mean, even in the next 21 years or less, they said that the population is going to double here. So the goal is, how do we preserve that sense of community and sense of family in this area, even as we increase in size? And I honestly think that if there was ever a case for witnessing that happening, I think it could happen here. With just, I think, the sentimentality that you have of the people of Northwest Arkansas, and just, you know, what opportunities exist here. So I think it's really good, and I think if there are more people like yourself and others that are from here that can kind of steward and shepherd that growth, I think the sky is the limit. So
maybe we can get Amazon to do the new headquarters here.
So, I don't know about that. I mean, I think that would be a tough sell for a lot of people. And I always joke about Costco, because it's just being funny, because I can just go down the road to Tulsa if I want to go to Costco. But people say, well, maybe Costco will come to Northwest Arkansas, and I'm like, not as long as Sam's Club is based in Northwest Arkansas. Sam's Club is not going to open up a location in Kirkland, Washington, and so it's just the way it is. That's where Costco's based. But anyway, I digress. Thank you so much, Chad, for coming on this podcast. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy workday to come and hang out. And although I'm not in that office every day, I certainly enjoy just the privilege of us hanging out and talking, and just for you sharing your story with the rest of this audience. There's so much more we could have talked about. I mean, at one point in time, you were Mr. Baseball here in Arkansas, and I could go on and on about some of your athletic accomplishments here. But I mean, again, I really wanted to talk to Chad the man, and so you really provided the audience with some great information, and I hope you guys really like this. And so if people want to reach out or connect with you, what's the best way to connect with you? I know you're on Instagram, and how can people reach out to you to just say thank you for being on the episode?
Sure, and well, I'll have Randy leave my my cell, which is 479.
Wait, you don't have to give your cell.
Oh, what? All right, well, I'll have Randy leave my email.
Yeah, I'll put an email out there, and because people will start calling you, because I'm surprised too. I put my information out there, and all of a sudden I'm getting a lot of calls that I didn't expect to get. Now I'm getting them all the time, but it's all good. You don't have to actually put your cell out there, but yeah, we'll put your email in the show notes, and then what's your Instagram?
It's Chad Coldiron.
There you go. Remember the movie star Chad Coldiron, all one word, and that's COLD iron, like it sounds. So
next time we'll do this. We'll get a couple of beers, and we'll talk a little bit more about sports, some more casual conversation.
Yeah, I think we should do that. And because I see another episode at some point in time where we can kind of expand upon some of these ideas that we talked about. And we don't have to talk about antiquing the next time. We can talk about succulents, or we can talk about sports and baseball and just all the great things that are happening in this area. And so, we'll have to figure that out.
Some of the entertainment opportunities that have been coming to our area are amazing as well. I mean, we just filmed the newest season of True Detective here.
Exactly.
I know we've had a couple of other smaller movies that have agreed to come and start filming. So that is very exciting. That's probably the most recent change that we saw around Fayetteville in the last year was the feedback I got from anyone I spoke to who's associated with any of the filmings on that was, we loved it here and we will be back.
Exactly, yeah. And I think what's kind of cool is that you've got a lot of different looks to the area, right? I mean, Springdale doesn't look quite like Fayetteville, and Fayetteville doesn't look quite like Bentonville, so each town has its own little unique flavor. And you're absolutely right. True Detective was filmed here. I've talked about that on another episode. I think the other thing, one of the things that I was told, and I didn't realize this, but was that the amphitheater, the original amp, was at the back of the Northwest Arkansas Mall, and
it was in the parking lot.
It was in the parking lot. So you've got the amp now, which has some. And I'm going to post on our Facebook page. I am Northwest Arkansas. I'll post a list of all the concerts coming to the amp this summer. There's some great concerts coming. I just found out about Johnny Gill and some others that are coming here in September. But anyway, when I heard about the original location of the amp, I was like, wow. They were like, yeah. Before it was up in Rogers, it was down in Fayetteville, right behind the mall in the parking lot. And they were like, and did you know that Earth, Wind, and Fire performed there, and so many other people. And I was like, what?
Yeah, I saw a couple of Hootie and the Blowfish concerts in the parking lot of the mall.
I had no idea. So I look at that mall totally differently. I'm like, man, this is like special sacred ground. It's almost like when you go to Woodstock, you're like, wow, there were some great bands here. So anyway, but we'll post the information with regard to upcoming schedules of events at the AMP. But yeah, you should definitely check out that facility. It's absolutely gorgeous, and certainly you should avail yourselves of all of the entertainment that's happening here. And you're right, Chad, we do need to do an episode where we just talk about all the entertainment, because as I met with Chelsea Ware from Ask Fayetteville and What's Up Fayetteville, she's part of this thing called the Sick House, and there's so many things going on here, and there's a lot of talented people in Northwest Arkansas. And I know you've actually been affiliated with some people that have had a real impact in this area from a musical standpoint. So I think that's pretty cool. And you know what, we will have to spend some time talking about that, because I know that there is a set of our audience that is big into entertainment and you know what that means. So, but I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely. I'll be back soon.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, there you have it, folks. Chad Coldiron. And we really appreciate him coming on this episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. And again, I want to remind you guys, we have this podcast has taken off overnight. Thank you so much for being a listener. If you can share this podcast with a friend, if you know somebody that's thinking about coming here and you need to get that little push them over the edge, then share this podcast with them. Let them know what this place is all about. And for those of you that are around here and are just becoming acclimated to the area and all the aha moments that this podcast can provide you, we would appreciate you listening. We would appreciate you sharing. And also remember, if you can also write a review about the podcast, and you can leave us a message on our website at iamnorthwestarkansas.com to let us know what you thought about an episode. If you didn't like it, if you hated Chad, if you love Chad, if you hate Randy, if you love Randy, please share with us. Remember, sharing is caring, and the only way we get better is to understand what our audience is thinking, what they're feeling, and what they want. So we do want to give the people what they want, because this is not the Randy Show. That's why I didn't call it the Randy Show. It's I Am Northwest Arkansas. So please just continue to connect with us and check us out on Facebook at I Am Northwest Arkansas. You can also check us out online at iamnorthwestarkansas.com. And remember, we are here every Monday at 12 noon. We drop a new episode, sometimes 2, maybe even 3. And if nothing else, at least 1. So, you know, we want to make sure we're giving you the best of what Northwest Arkansas has to offer. And each and every week, I'm going out to connect with the best to bring them to you directly. So thank you so much for trusting me and allowing this podcast to enter your headspace. And so we hope that it is a blessing for you. And we look forward to seeing you next week. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn. Peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. Check us out each and every week, available anywhere that great podcasts can be found. For show notes or more information on becoming a guest, visit iamnorthwestarkansas.com. We'll see you next week on I Am Northwest Arkansas.